Joshua was born in Egypt during a time when the Israelites were enslaved. His original name was Hoshea, but Moses gave him the name Joshua, which means, "The Lord is salvation." From a young age, Joshua displayed a remarkable spirit of courage and determination. Though the details of his early childhood are sparse, it's clear that he was deeply influenced by the stories of God's miracles and promises that were shared among the Israelites. Joshua's first significant role came when he was appointed as Moses' assistant. He served faithfully, learning the intricacies of leadership and witnessing firsthand the miraculous power of God. Imagine standing at the base of Mount Sinai as God delivered the 10 Commandments. Joshua was present during these formative moments, absorbing wisdom and understanding the importance of obedience to God. As Moses' aide, Joshua was also chosen to be one of the 12 spies sent to explore Canaan, the land promised to the Israelites. Unlike many of the other spies, Joshua returned with faith and confidence. He trusted God's promise that the land could be conquered, despite the presence of giants and fortified cities. His courage in the face of fear set him apart, marking him as a man with extraordinary faith. But Joshua's journey wasn't without challenges. The Israelites, often fearful and rebellious, were hesitant to trust in God's plan. Yet Joshua remained steadfast. His loyalty and unwavering faith did not go unnoticed. God saw in Joshua a leader who could guide the Israelites with courage, patience, and devotion. When Moses approached the end of his life, God spoke to Joshua, charging him with the monumental task of leading the Israelites into the promised land. God promised to be with him, saying, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." This divine encouragement became Joshua's guiding principle, the foundation upon which he would build a remarkable legacy. Joshua's appointment as the new leader was not just a change in command. It was a passing of responsibility from one generation to the next. The Israelites had wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and now, under Joshua's leadership, they were on the brink of a new chapter. This transition required immense courage, not just to lead a nation, but to trust in God's promises even when obstacles seemed insurmountable. As we reflect on Joshua's early life and call to leadership, we can see lessons for our own lives. Faith, patience, and courage are essential when stepping into new roles or facing challenges. Joshua's story reminds us that leadership is not about personal strength alone, but about reliance on God, listening for guidance, and committing to act even when the future seems uncertain. In our next script, we will explore the remarkable miracles that marked the beginning of Joshua's leadership, the crossing of the Jordan River and the dramatic fall of Jericho. These events cemented Joshua's reputation as a leader chosen by God and demonstrated that obedience and faith can achieve what seems impossible. After 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, the Israelites finally stood at the edge of the land promised to their ancestors. The Jordan River, swollen with seasonal floods, separated them from the land that God had vowed to give them. For many, it must have seemed impossible to cross, but Joshua trusted in God's promise and prepared the people for what was to come. God instructed Joshua to have the priests carry the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred symbol of his presence, into the river. The moment the priests' feet touched the water, something extraordinary happened. The waters of the Jordan stopped flowing, piling up in a heap, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry ground. Imagine the astonishment and awe of thousands of people witnessing this miracle. It was a powerful sign that God was with Joshua, just as he had promised. Once they crossed, Joshua set up 12 stones taken from the riverbed as a memorial to remind future generations of God's faithfulness. This act was more than a symbolic gesture. It was a teaching moment. Joshua wanted the Israelites to remember that God is their ultimate guide and protector, even when facing challenges that seem insurmountable. With the Jordan behind them, the Israelites faced their first major conquest, the city of Jericho. Jericho was heavily fortified, with massive walls that seemed impenetrable. Yet, God's instructions to Joshua were unconventional, showing that obedience often requires faith rather than brute force. For 6 days, the Israelites marched silently around the city once each day, with priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant and blowing trumpets. On the 7th day, they marched around the city 7 times. Then, at Joshua's command, the people shouted loudly, and miraculously the walls of Jericho collapsed. The fall of Jericho was not just a military victory. It was a divine demonstration that faith and obedience triumph over fear and opposition. Joshua's leadership was defined by his willingness to follow God's instructions, even when they seemed unusual or impossible. The Israelites witnessed firsthand that victory comes from trusting God rather than relying solely on human strength. After Jericho, Joshua faced a crucial test of discernment. Achan, one of the Israelites, disobeyed God's command by taking some of the spoils from the city. This act of disobedience caused temporary defeat in their next battle. However, Joshua acted decisively to restore order and obedience, demonstrating that leadership involves both faith and accountability. Through these events, we learn a profound lesson. God's power is revealed when we act with faith and follow His guidance. The crossing of the Jordan and the fall of Jericho were not only victories for the Israelites, they were powerful reminders that God keeps His promises and rewards trust and obedience. Joshua's courage and unwavering faith inspired the people to move forward, even in the face of daunting challenges. As we conclude today's story, remember that the miracles in Joshua's journey teach us that faith often requires patience, courage, and trust in divine guidance. When we face our own Jordan rivers or seemingly insurmountable walls, we can draw strength from Joshua's example and the reminder that with God, all things are possible. In our next script, we will follow Joshua as he leads the Israelites through multiple conquests in the Promised Land, facing both victories and challenges that test his leadership and faith. These battles will reveal the deeper qualities that made Joshua an extraordinary leader. Stay with us, because the story of Joshua is far from over, and each step forward shows us lessons that remain timeless and inspiring. After Jericho, Joshua's next major conquest was the city of Ai. Unlike Jericho, Ai initially resisted, and the Israelites suffered defeat due to Achan's disobedience. This setback reminded Joshua and the people of the importance of faithfulness to God's commands. Once Achan was held accountable and the sin addressed, God granted Joshua victory. The city of Ai fell, demonstrating that obedience and trust in God are the true keys to success. Joshua's campaigns were not just about military strategy, they were spiritual lessons for the Israelites. Every victory reinforced the principle that God fights alongside His people when they follow His guidance. He divided the land among the 12 tribes, giving each its inheritance, fulfilling the promise God had made to Abraham generations earlier. This division required wisdom, fairness, and patience, highlighting Joshua's skill not only as a military leader, but also as a statesman. One of Joshua's greatest challenges was uniting a diverse group of people. The Israelites had spent 40 years wandering, and now they were entering a land filled with established nations and cities. Some tribes faced stronger resistance, others struggled with doubt, and yet Joshua encouraged them all to trust God's plan. He reminded them of the victories at Jericho and Ai, urging them to remain courageous and steadfast. Throughout the conquest, Joshua displayed remarkable qualities: courage, decisiveness, humility, and unwavering faith. He prayed fervently, sought God's guidance, and acted boldly when necessary. Each battle was a testament to the partnership between human effort and divine guidance, showing that leadership rooted in faith can overcome obstacles that seem impossible. In addition to external battles, Joshua also faced internal challenges. Maintaining unity among the tribes, ensuring fairness in the land allocation, and upholding God's laws required wisdom and integrity. Joshua understood that leadership is not only about winning battles, but also about creating a just and faithful community. He set an example of personal integrity, showing that true leadership involves character and accountability. By the end of the conquest, Joshua had led the Israelites to claim much of the Promised Land. Cities fell, alliances were forged, and the people began to settle, fulfilling the dreams of generations who had longed for freedom and a homeland. Yet Joshua remained humble, constantly reminding the people that it was God who granted them victory. He established altars and memorials, teaching the importance of remembering God's faithfulness and passing on these lessons to future generations. Joshua's story during these conquests teaches us timeless lessons. Faith and courage are essential when facing challenges. Obedience and integrity pave the way for lasting success. And perhaps most importantly, leadership requires humility and recognition that victories are often the result of collective effort and divine guidance rather than individual strength alone. As we close today's chapter, remember that Joshua's conquests were more than military victories. They were spiritual lessons and a demonstration of God's faithfulness. He showed that trust in God, combined with courage and wisdom, can transform impossible situations into triumphs.